Hello. You are listening to the Carroll Connection with your host, Jared Carroll.
Hey everybody, welcome back to the Carroll Connection. I'm your host, Jared Carroll, here to bring you guys another great episode. I did want to take a chance to shout out last week's episode 217 with Lucas Nature. He is an artist and filmmaker, and on that episode we talked about him creating Passion Street Media, doing street interviews, as well as launching his YouTube channel where he's really reviewing Airbnbs and rental properties that are affordable and kind of like in nature and stuff like that. Just really cool Airbnbs and kind of working on that, as well as his own art projects as well. You can check that episode out at thecarrollconnection.simplecast.com. Also available Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and all the major listening platforms. If you'd like to watch your podcast, go on YouTube, search the Carroll Connection or at Jared M. Carroll, and it'll pop up right for you. And if you want to be a guest or return as a guest, hit me up on Instagram at Jared M. Carroll or at the Carroll Connection. We'll set that up, as well as plugging the 5 Pillars to Creating Meaningful Life. Only available on Amazon. And if you buy it and you really like it, submit the review on Amazon. It goes a long way in the algorithm. And I know a lot of you have read the book and not submitted the review. So please do that. And I will continue to keep saying that because it really does help. So that brings me to today's episode 218 with Paul from What Up, Rhody.
How you doing?
Glad to have you on the podcast and really excited to do this. And I've seen you actually plug in a lot of different creators that like I've seen, even like Cam Productions and stuff like that, CMX Productions. Shout out Cam, doing a ton of work down at with the Patriots and promoting that. And I saw you were posting that stuff, and just a couple of the creators that I've seen and worked with that are familiar with your work and stuff like that. Even like Lucas Nature, and we're talking about Passion Street Media. But excited to have you on the podcast and just let everyone know who you are and what you're doing currently.
So my name is Paul. I'm the creator of What Up, Rhody. Basically, I do social media content, building, the brand of what's going on, happening in the state. Also just highlighting different people, as you said, different creators and everything. And also just showing people what this great state has to offer. So that's one of my biggest goals with this. And also make it fun, interesting, loose, casual, whatever adjective you want to make it. So yeah, that's basically my my claim to fame with this one.
Yeah, I love that. And I love that you are doing Rhode Island based content and focusing on that and putting your energy into that. I know we were talking a little bit off podcast about different content that you've created and like had success doing that stuff, and coming back to kind of like feed the communities type shit, where you're really giving back to people and focusing on highlighting the cool stuff in this area. And I'm really big on that because like telling you that's kind of like what I do with the podcast is I focus on like local creators and what are people doing in this area, and kind of highlighting that everyday people do really cool things. And I think what you do with your content is awesome. I think it's a great like path for you and stuff like that. And we'll get into that towards like the back end of the conversation. I do want to take a chance to kind of like focus on the beginning half and talk about your life story a little bit. So I was telling you off podcast, I like to focus on family dynamic first. And for any new listeners, if you guys are unfamiliar with the content, I always give like a little spiel of like why I do family dynamic. And I always use the same cliche where it's like, if you're thinking about like a house and like the foundation of a house, I always say that's our family, for better or for worse. If there's cracks in it or if it's a perfect foundation, it's kind of where we come from. And I think it's always a cool way to kind of start a podcast because we get a little bit of insight into like who you are. And I'll let you kind of take the floor with that. It's kind of whatever you're comfortable with sharing. So if you want to dive into that.
Yeah. So my mom, my dad both raised me. It was just me. I was an only child. So, at Christmas time, it was great because I got all the presents. Right? But my parents, been there with everything that I've done, very supportive of everything. Between sports, academics, right? Really just pushing me to be the best version of myself. Just as I grown up, they put me through, Catholic school and, helping me like I said, be the best version of myself. I think a lot of it has to do with what I do, not just with What Up, Rhody, just in life in general. Comes from them. Evan, with parents, there's two different dynamics, right? You always get like different traits from your mom, different traits from your dad. And so I see that every day. Both my parents always teach me, different values, morals and ethics, to be a good person, while also, obviously having fun and, being a good person in the community and respecting others and treating other people that want to be treated. So that's my family dynamic. Been living with them for forever, right? Growing up in Rhode Island, born and raised. I think a lot of people, whenever they, especially with family dynamics, you see different things out of what your parents teach you. And, that's foundation, as you mentioned, right? The foundation is key in any sort of, family dynamic, right? You want to build a solid foundation. I know for my parents, they wanted that for me, and they still do. They always tell me all the time, they're like, I don't care if you're 100, right? We're still going to want the best for you and want you to have a good, solid foundation. Um, and I think that that's, right now, I'm 23 years old, so I think that's very pivotal. And I think that that's something that I really am been more focused on within, especially I think within the last couple of years, when you get into your 20s, because when you're in your teens, you're like, I got all the time in the world, right? And in your 20s, you still have time, but it's go time now. You're an adult, so they really try to help me focus on that. So, but I'm super grateful for everything that they've done and they continue to do, and all the amazing success, and support that they've given me. It's really a good thing. I'm very humbled by it, and I'm words can't describe it. I could say thank you all I want, but it would never amount to where it should be.
Yeah, I love that you give them their flowers in real time, and even talking about like building the foundation, and like that's exactly why I talk about this, because like obviously everyone's got a different family dynamic and
Yes.
where they come from and kind of how their family life was, and I think it's important to at least give the chance for people to talk about that if they want to,
Right.
because it paints a picture for people to understand, all right, this is their point of view and this is why they got into whatever passion or business that they
Right.
created. And I think it's like good to give people that space. And it's, we were talking even about content and like how sometimes nonsensical podcasts can be. And you see online, there's tons of podcasts everywhere.
Yes.
People talk about nothing but like nothing. And they're just creating new ways to say nothing
Right.
basically. And this is a way to kind of, I think, really connect with people on a more human level of like,
Mm,
we all have some type of family dynamic,
yeah.
and for better or for worse, let's talk about it. And I think letting people figure that out for themselves is like really been working for me, because like it's not like I want to pry into your family life and ask you all
No.
these
Yeah.
these questions, but it's to get an understanding and to see where you are like comfort wise into the
Right.
conversation, and like it's building blocks, like I said, and we continue to build that through the conversation. And I think it's like it's just important. I did want to ask, and this is like a, I guess like a stereotypical kind of question, but like you mentioned being an only child, like
Yes.
how was that for you kind of growing up? Was it this like the stereotypical like only child syndrome? Like what was it like for you?
I would say that it was very, my parents, were very much into keeping me entertained as much as possible, exposing me to new things, like, going on day trips and, putting me like at sports and everything. And it's tough. I have friends that have multiple brothers and sisters, and, I hear the horror stories and the good stories, but when you're young, you're like, oh, a friend to play with, right? But really, my imagination was always running wild, um, especially back when I was a kid. Even to this day, I mean, I'm not doing the same things when I was 6, but it's relatively the same. But um, it's I think that when you're an only child, and everyone has a different way. There's two sides. There's people that love being an only child, and people hate being an only child, and it gets to them. Me personally, I like being an only child, and it wasn't for like the reasons that everyone's thinking, like, oh, you get everything. It's like, no, I mean, I got to create my own, my own fun, my own adventure. My parents, again, crediting them, they were really big into, keeping me, entertained and giving me exposure to things. And, I think that we sometimes tend to, forget, that creativity can come in all different forms. And me personally, I wouldn't mind having a brother or a sister, when I was little. Like, even if they, if they were to have them, I wouldn't mind that, because I'm good with everyone. And like I said, as I said earlier, I mean, I'm good with people. My parents tell me just, respect and morals and ethics. But being an only child is, for me, was a kind of like a stepping stone in who I am. And I think that's really a blessing to me. But it's, you had your moments when you were little,
Yeah, and I think
Yeah.
it's a good thing to like to ask and point out and have that conversation
Right.
because it shows too. Because like obviously people can have the opposite experience where they're super lonely and they're not like connecting with others, or they don't have a lot of
Oh
cousins, and
yeah.
like the friendships difficult to make. And I think it's a huge credit to your parents for like helping promote and like form those relationships and like
Yes.
create those activities for you or do those certain things for you. And also, if they just felt like having one child was going to be the best for them to be able to give all their like a love and attention and like
Mm.
actually nurture you properly and create good values, then great. And if that was
Yes.
life plan, awesome. And because like obviously there's the other side where sometimes people have too many kids, and like I've seen even like TikToks where it's like regretful parents where they talk about, it's like Reddit threads
Mm.
basically, and it's like
Yeah.
Reddit stories of like people who regret having children
Mm.
and
Yeah.
like bought into like the whole narrative of being a parent
Yeah.
because like there is this like novelty about being a parent
Yeah.
that is pushed on social media. And I think a lot of people right now are awakening to that experience. Well, parenting is like a real difficult thing.
Yeah.
And like if you're gonna have multiple children, like that's multiple different people, multiple
Mm.
different personalities that you
Oh
have to
yeah.
work with. And like how are you going to manage your time to one, care for yourself, your partner, and multiple children? Like, and
Right.
if you don't have the funds, if you don't have the like mental health for it, if you don't
Mm.
have the capabilities for it, then like maybe having multiple children isn't beneficial. And
Yeah.
like that also isn't beneficial towards that child too if they're not getting all the love, care, and attention that they need. So I think it's a cool way to look at it too,
Mm.
is like you come out of this where yeah, you're an only child. Someone could be like, "Oh, that could have sucked," but like it's like no, like I was really like helped me become a really great person and like do all these different
Yeah.
things. And I think that's a really cool thing to like highlight because I don't know if I've heard that like opinion or take from someone who has been an only child yet. So I think that's interesting.
Yeah, I think the other thing too, thinking about it, my grandfather, and this is something that I can, definitely branch off into. My grandfather owned a barber shop around here. Um, I used to go every Saturday, and I used to, people that knew, I didn't know them well, but I knew them because of the shop, and they knew that I was, my grandfather's grandson. I was talking with people that were, 60, 70, 80, 90 years old, right? When I was 10. And so, that experience is, really stay with you. And for me, I think that that's something that helps me in the position that I'm in, not only just with What Up Brody, but just in my life. And I never, I'm not like, oh yeah, the 89, the 70, 80, 90 year olds are like the ones that are, my best friends in the world. Like I obviously had friends my own age, but it definitely helped, break me out of the shell. And I saw the way that my grandfather interacted with them, everybody, all different people, all different walks of life, came in and got their haircut. Right. And it was a nice atmosphere. And I have a lot of great memories from that. But yeah, no, I think that that's definitely another key contributor to
Yeah,
it.
it's a
Yeah.
very unique experience to have too. And I think that's
Mm.
really cool. It could definitely shape you too, especially when you're getting all those different life
Right.
perspectives from people that are older. And like
Right.
that's very unique. I want to actually bridge off that a little bit and start transitioning a little bit into like childhood and stuff like
Yeah.
that, where since this is really building off the only child stuff, but like supplementing that, like what were your hobbies? Like how did you make friends? Was it through sports or other activities? Like what was the thing for you?
So I played sports growing up. I played basketball. I played baseball. Played ultimate frisbee in high school. That's a curveball one. I did that. I made friends through. I built sets in theater. Right. Everyone's like, "Oh, theater kid," right? And I built the sets. I never acted or anything. So I did that. That was really fun. And just overall, just going to school, making friends with same interests. We were all basically into the same things. A lot of us, with the sports, playing organized basketball, playing little league with one another, and Babe Ruth. And then that just kind of those friendships formed, and then also interests as well. When we were little, we were like into Star Wars and all that stuff. And then we had just as we got older, we got into new things, and things were cool. And especially when, looking back on it, right, you're like, oh my God, why did I, why did I care so much about what people thought about, oh, you don't have the latest and greatest thing. And it's like, well, when you're in like third, fourth grade, you're like, oh no. But like now you're like, oh my God, dude, like what were you thinking? And so Yeah, I mean, I got along with everybody. I was one of those kids. I didn't have a friend group. I got along with everyone, right? And that was from kindergarten all the way until now, right? I've really just had some, friends or people that I knew and got along with every walk of life. I mean, seriously, I mean, I got along with everyone. Like I did have core friends, and I still do to this day, right? But it's just, I wasn't like, oh, I'm here, I'm only here, like in this core friend group, and if I branch off, it's weird, right? Because my like, again, calling back to my parents here, they said, you gotta like try new things. Like if you stay in one spot, you're not gonna be able to see what possibilities are out there. If you stay with what's comfortable, right? It's like, all right, yeah, it's good for now, but is it going to help you in the future? Will it stay? You have to kind of, you got to diversify, right? You hear that when you get older, right? Diversified portfolios and all that stuff. And I think that that's really something that I wanted to kind of cultivate. And when I was younger, I didn't understand it. I was like, oh, I want my friends now, right? But now looking back on it, it's even till today, I think about that all the time, and that's how I grew a lot of great relationships with people.
Yeah, I really resonate with that point actually because I felt like I was someone that didn't always have a specific friend group either.
Mm,
I bounced around different groups and like for a couple years I'm hanging out with these people and then a few years later I'm hanging out with these people and I also have core friends too, like specific friends that to this day that like are the few people that I keep consistently over
right.
time.
Mm,
And I think it's important to have those type of friends, but I think it shows a certain uniqueness to like character when you're able to like have all these different friend groups and like form all these positive relationships. And I think for me personally, it's helped me do this podcast because
right.
I've interacted with different friend groups and had different relationships with people. And like I've like had like my sport phase or my going out phase or like my work phase and like all different types of friend groups in different walks of life. And everyone has different issues or different struggles that they're going through and
Right.
having those one-on-one personal conversations whether sober or not. And like I
Mhm.
think it's always interesting to have those conversations with people and have those different relationships for different periods of your life. And it's
Right.
like not bad that they're not with you
Yeah.
anymore,
Oh yeah.
but you still have a piece of them with you. And like you said, diversifying and having those different experiences is super valuable.
Right.
And like I think it's important as I preach as like a content creator or someone who's wrote a book or not do a podcast or whatever.
Right.
Like I do different things because it's important. I think
Mm,
it's like one of the like most important things you can do as a person is constantly trying to create new experience for yourself.
yeah.
And like you kind of mentioned, it's gonna kind of suck getting out of that comfort zone. Comfort zones are nice.
Yeah.
They're called comfort zones for a reason.
Yeah. You're comfortable.
And it's like you don't want to get out of that, but in order to get to places that you might want to go as a person, you're gonna have to put yourself in those situations and like enjoy the suck and embrace the suck because like that's gonna be the thing that gets you to that next level in life where you really get to like do a podcast or
Right.
write a book. Like I
Mm.
had to take a leap of faith to do that. I had to really like open myself up to like criticism and like what are people going to think of me
Oh
and like
yeah.
that exists and obviously we can get into that with content in a second, but like that aspect of reality is there when you're trying to create a new person when you already are someone. Like that's like the hardest thing.
Yeah.
It's like the imposter syndrome. It's like how do I be what I want to be while also being myself but portraying this different version of me that I
Mm,
want to be. It's
yeah.
it's a different difficult like line to like to navigate, and I think when you have all those different friend groups, I think it's like easier to do that as you get older.
Right.
I do want to start like building with this because I want to get towards like the social media stuff, and I don't want to jump the gun on that conversation because
Yeah.
I think
No.
it's like one of my favorite things to talk about. It's like social media content, like
Oh,
the
I could talk about it
judgmental
forever.
aspect of it, the negative opinions. But I want to build off this the sports and hobbies. This is like a quick little caveat, but like, what was your favorite sport like growing up?
Um, and I still play it to this day. I mean, I love watching baseball, but I play basketball the most, right? And there was just something about it, the technicality of it, the plays, shooting the ball, and I have a basketball hoop in my driveway, and I got to do that more than I could hit baseballs in my backyard, right? So yeah, I basketball was my favorite out of all of them. I mean, Ultimate Frisbee was up there too. Is up there too. I mean, I loved Ultimate Frisbee.
Yeah, the
Right?
up and down. It's probably it's like that similar kind of vibe to whether it's like basketball or something like
Yeah,
that.
well, my lungs didn't like it, but but I loved, it was just there was something about it, and it's not as popular as people might think. It really isn't, but I really did enjoy that. But basketball, I'd have to say, is number one.
Yeah, that was a sport that for me right now, football's always been number one for me. Growing up, I loved baseball. Like
Yes.
I'm getting kind of back into it. Like the Sox got me going a little bit lately, and like I
Mm,
like the vibe of the team, and the future looks promising. And I'm trying to get my hopes up, not too much, but like, and then obviously the Celtics are devastating right now. It's like don't even get me started. Um, and I started late with basketball. It was like eighth grade where I started playing, and then it was like the only year I played. It was like honestly one of the most fun times I've ever had playing sports. Like my team was just like bunch of my friends, and he drafted basically it was like all like we're all like football guys basically playing
yeah.
basketball. We looked ridiculous, like but like it was just so fun to take like we had like two like legit players that like were good at basketball, and the rest of us were like a bunch of like scrubs that just like played hard and like ran around. It's like, all right, go here. All right, got it. Just
Yeah.
get the ball. Got it. Give it to Chris or give it to Eric and just
Yeah.
get them the ball. And for me, baseball though, you were mentioning it's harder to like do that, like kind of like you can't really like play catch with yourself or something like
Yeah.
that.
No.
Luckily for me, um, my dad actually invested into like a batting cage we put into our yard.
Oh wow.
Yeah, we had like a whole pitching machine and everything. We put up like
Yeah.
nets and everything. It was like one of the coolest things.
Oh yeah,
Like,
no, my dad and I used to play catch all the time. Like when I was in little league, but like keeping up with it, right?
yeah, yeah,
My
yeah,
dad would be out there. We'd be out there all the time in the backyard. He'd take me to the batting cages and fielding ground balls and everything, and But now it's tough.
yeah. It's more going off of like the like you could shoot in the hoop and stuff like that. Like you have to like go somewhere to like do bat baseball type of stuff.
Yes,
Like
yeah,
creating that cage and stuff, and like until the ball started going outside the net and you're hitting in your neighborhood, and it's like I
yeah,
probably shouldn't. We should probably be at a baseball field right now. Like,
yeah.
but I wanted to ask, because I mentioned off podcast, like, was there any specific values or lessons or morals, I guess, that you gained from playing sports at an early age?
I would say, I mean, in a team aspect, a lot of people say, "Oh, team," and that's true. But really, team is something that takes with you for your entire life, right? When you go to work, you're with a team, right? When you have a family, it's a team, whether you want to believe it or not. And everyone thinks a team like, all right, point guard, shooting guard, center, right? They think of positions. Everybody's got a position, so and I always say, and I say it jokingly, right? But it's true, for people that just want to be the one-star hero, the only person there. I'm like, if you want to be the one-star hero, go play tennis or badminton or tennis or golf. That's solo, right? You can play doubles in tennis, right? But that's the main thing. Like, if you want to, there's only one person you can blame. That's yourself in those sports. Everything else is a team. So I think that, you have to, communication is key, right? And these are all very cliche things. But like diving deep into it, no one really thinks about it, right? You think like, oh yeah, I got to pass to my players and stuff. But you have to really, you have to execute things. When you go to work, you're on a team. You're not just, doing this all on your own. And people will realize that as you get older. Like if in high school and middle school, it's kind of like, all right, let's just shoot around. Let's have some fun. Right. But then it starts getting real. And also, the bonds that you make with people, right? Because these people have your back. Right. And then there's going to be some people on your team that don't really like you. And what that reason is, who knows? There are times, we both know playing sports, we always had those kids that were like, they just wanted to hate just to hate. And, you didn't do anything, but somehow it came to you. Right. Or to anybody. So, trying to, cultivating a team and understanding team values is really important. It's one of the things I take away now. And realize I'm like, oh yeah, this is something that, this is real. This is real life. Take away the positions in the game. We're playing a game right now. We're playing the game of life, right? And I think that, also roles, think of like chess, right? You got to think, they always say, think 4 steps ahead, 3 steps ahead, right? Of your next move, and always have like those tactics. You're playing chess because your moves matter, and everybody else's moves matter, right? And you have to make that kind of, be in some sort of cohesive state. And me making this example sounds super complicated, but in the moment, you're just doing it. It's like, okay, got to get this report done. All right, let's all put together. All right, you research this, right? ChatGPT that, right? So, but yeah, it's that's huge for me. Team and roles. Everyone has a role. We are playing a game of life.
Yeah.
We are playing a game of life.
And I think that's a great point or great value to gain from that too, because like something I really learned was like we mentioned kind of like the roles and stuff. There's so many different personalities that you're
Right.
dealing with, and like you're not gonna like everyone that you deal with, or you're not gonna like everyone that you've been on a team with, and
Mm.
like that is one of the most difficult things about sports. And I think it's great that sports give you the chance to learn that, because like you could tell someone who hasn't played sports as a child and in like real life, like once you get to adulthood, versus people that have,
Right.
and the way that they tackle assignments or communicate with
Yeah.
you, the passive aggressiveness, like there's certain things that someone, if you play especially like physical sports, like someone's like talking shit to you. Like back then, they used to do this like Oklahoma drills for football, where people lay down, you get up, you hit each other.
Yeah,
Like,
they don't do that
yeah,
anymore.
I can't really do that anymore. But like back then, if people actually on the team had like disagreements or arguments with people, coaches would say, "All right, we'll figure it out on the field. This is what we do. This is what practice field's for. Like, settle the beef right here. That's it."
Yes.
And like you learn how to like resolve conflicts. You understand
Mm,
that you can't like do certain things or act certain ways because it affects the team. And when you get into real life and people don't have those skills, it becomes very hard to deal with those types of
right.
people. And like
Yeah.
if you learn that through sports, you could better handle situations like that, which also help you as a person become like a better teammate,
Yeah.
and also probably avoid situations like that too.
Yeah.
Because if you're easier to work with and people enjoy being around you because you have those skills, the less likely conflict's gonna arise.
Right.
But like obviously if it does, you have that experience because you played different sports and you have all these trials and tribulations. And
Yeah.
I think that's kind of the reason that I like talking about this, because like people don't think deeply enough about their youth sports and like what they gain from that. But like I was, even back in the moment, football was like my life back then when I was in high school. Um, Anybody knows me knows that I was like the football guy. And I was always like big about heart, about teamwork, about ethic, about like dedication, like consistency, like preaching this stuff. And everyone's like laughing, like, well, it's just a game, man. It's just a game. I'm like, y'all don't get it. Like, we don't get time back in this. Like this
Mm,
youth sports stuff, like it's so fun and pure that a lot of people overlook it. It's like
yeah.
some of your greatest moments can come from this if you really like take the time to appreciate it, and like the people that are you're around. Because like God forbid, like knock on wood, like nothing bad happens to like people in your life. But I've had teammates that have like passed away and stuff like
Yeah.
that, where it's like you have to appreciate this stuff because you don't know how long you get it for.
Right.
And that's like another like lesson that you can gain from sports too, is just like appreciating the moment, being in the moment. Like that was like one of the biggest things like my high school coach would always tell us, is like kind of like be there, be in it, like focus on the thing that's in front of you. Like can't be thinking about everything all the time. Like 3 weeks from now, like you're in this moment, enjoy the moment and do the work right
Yeah.
now, because like the game's happening.
Yeah.
Don't miss it.
Yeah.
And I think that's like and it's like just another great point with that, continuing the conversation, because I want to get closer towards the content and everything. Take me through like high school, like kind of more senior year specifically. What your life path starting to look like at this point? Like, were you going to go to college? Were you not going to go to college? Why? Why not?
Yeah. No, I was a COVID kid, right? I graduated in the 2020 year. So school got cut short, right? And I was going to go to university for engineering. Um, and then from there, I was like, I was gung ho, right? This was before we knew anything about COVID, right? So we got everything ready. You do everything you got to do. You're all hyped up. You're like, all right, we're going to university. Then COVID hits, right? And then 2 weeks turns into 4 weeks, and then a couple months, and then pretty soon it overlaps into August, right? And then we had a graduation ceremony in my high school. We were fortunate enough to have that. But it was, we were like, whoa, this is gonna derail us a little bit. So I said to myself, I'm not going to go to school, right? And, pay a lot of money and be home, right? So I was going to go to, CCRI, right? Well, I went to CCRI, like that was my alternative. Um, and so I said, let's do that. Let's do engineering there. Did that. Um, Enjoyed it a little bit. I like the creative side. Like one of my favorite classes there in the engineering program was doing the 3D modeling on the computer. I loved CAD. Like I just, I mean, to this day, right? One of my favorite classes. Like I would, get the textbook and just, make all the different things. I go ahead, right? And that was cool to me. And that was because I do like tech, right? So it was kind of like, all right, hand in hand. Um, and I like math a little bit, right? I like fun math, but math that works for everybody, right? But and then that was kind of that was my path, but I didn't let that derail me, right? At first it did. At first it did. I will admit. But looking back on it now, I'm like, I'm where I need to be, right? And I tell people that all the time. They're like, that must have really been tough. I'm like, in the moment it was, but looking back on it, I'm like, I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for those moments, right? Funny enough, when I took time off, so I went to engineering to CCRI, and then I said, I don't like engineering anymore. Wasn't a fan of it. The math and everything. I was like, all right, this is way too much. Around that time period, I started social media. Right? I said, you know what? I looked at theme pages. Everyone was kind of still at home at the time. So I said, all right, let's see what theme pages are about. So I make a sports card page. It was called the Card Dome. And that was something that I was like, that was like a little project. I said, I don't know what's going to happen with this, but I'm going to put my effort into it because I took time off of school because I didn't want to just go from one thing to another thing and then not know what that other thing was. So I said, all right, let's give it a shot. So, I got a good following from there. And then, fast forwarding, 2 years later, this was 2022, April of 2022. 2 years later from there, I was able to hit 30K on it, which was really sick. And then recently, yeah, last year, I want to get the timetable correct. I said, you know what, gonna go back to school, right? I said I'm gonna go back to school for business, right? Because I was very intrigued with business, right? Doing the doing the social media page, doing that page, I was able to connect with all different people, and I just kind of just became interested. I was interested in the sales, I was interested in the marketing, I was interested into all of it, right? And I said, I wanna do this, and so I'm finishing up this year, right? This will be my last year, and I'll graduate from CCRI again. But that's really that was my journey with high school, senior year. We were all hyped up. We all had senioritis. We were all like, I want to get out of here, right? But that was a really big lesson of you don't know what's good until it's gone, right? And that was one of those big things where senior year we didn't have senior prom, we didn't have senior prank, we didn't have the award ceremony. We were just handed our things, and then we were off on our merry way. And that really it was an eye-opener to me, and that was something that changed my perspective about just life in general, saying, hey, this can change. Life throws curveballs at people, right? And that's something I was like, yeah, at the time I was mad. I was like, oh, this isn't what I wanted, right? And then as time went forward, I said, this is what needs to happen, right? And had I gone to university, would I have started social media? Probably not, right? Because I wouldn't have had the time. Maybe I would have, right? But I wanted something to fill that gap in between. So that was one of my really big things, and that's kind of how I got to where I'm at now. But we still got more
Yeah.
steps with that.
Yeah, and
So I
it's
don't want to go
like
too far.
no, that was great, and I think it's a great like everything happens for a reason. It's the way it's supposed to happen, and it's the ultimate like life is unfair, and there's nothing you can do about it.
Yeah.
So what are you gonna do?
Yeah, I know a lot of people that really just got really thrown for a loop. They could not, and nothing against people. They got frazzled, right? I mean, who wouldn't? We have never dealt with something like this where the whole world shuts down, right? And everything is just, we can't go anywhere, we can't do anything, right? And your plans are your plans, and then some people got derailed, and I think everyone's doing fine now, but it's, yeah, at the time going in this blind, and perspective is everything, right? And at the time I was like, oh, this stinks, it shouldn't happen this way, making all excuses. And I'm now, if this, knock on wood, if this would have happened now, right, I wouldn't, I would definitely be more like, all right, we gotta push. You just gotta keep pushing through. Life gives you stuff. My dad always tells me, he said, take what the defense gives you, right? We always try to go for, the big highlight play. We always want to do the one-handed catch, the big juke. Just get the first down. You know this, right? You got 4 downs. Get that first down, right? It's not gonna be pretty. It's not gonna be pretty. But if I get a touchdown, 7 points is 6 points is 6 points, and I'll kick that field goal, right? Or that extra point. That's real. That is something that people don't understand. They always want it to be flashy and, social media, oh look, I'm on vacation, right? It's that's good things. But life is not going to be glamorous. You can make it glamorous. It's all in what you make of it, right? With me, people always say to me, like, you're always like very positive, upbeat, happy. Why? Right? I said, because I don't let certain things get to my head, right? I said, yeah, I'm gonna, I get frustrated. I'm not a robot, right? But this is something that's kind of been in the making, right? I haven't, I had to learn about what adjustment means. I had to learn about, you know, tackling different obstacles and taking what the defense gives me, right? I got to carry that ball somehow, right? As long as it's forward progress, I'm going toward my goal, right? It's, and people, and that's one of the big problems with social media. You've probably seen it as well yourself. We always see the end results of everybody. We don't see that grind, right? We don't see how people got there, right? We just are like, oh, they're on vacation. They bought a new bag. They bought a new car, right? And you're like envying them. You're like, well, you don't know what they did to get there. Hey, you know what? Their quickness, you don't know what their situation is. That could be a short-term thing, right? And you're doing the long game, and you're doing something that, it's investing. You're building up you're building yourself up, saying, okay, I got to take the steps to do it. Because me personally, and as much as sometimes I, beg to differ in reactions, I sometimes get like really flustered with stuff like that. I'm like, oh, I want it to happen now. I want it now. And that's just not possible. There are some things that happen quick, but there's a lot of things that, you just gotta push through, and, you just gotta say to yourself, this is what it is. You gotta, like, I'll keep saying it, right? And because I think people watching, probably will be like, yeah, my path is not gonna be all glamorous. I'm not gonna make the highlight plays. I'm not gonna juke everyone out every single play. I'm gonna get hit. I'm only gonna probably go for 1 yard. But guess what? That's 1 yard closer to where I'm going. Right?
I love that analogy, and I think that's obviously being a football guy that really
Yeah.
resonates with me. It's just like, and even like the pre-interview where I'm telling you all the different stuff that I've gone through, because like you can walk in, you see 200 episodes, you see the cameras, see the lights, so like, oh, this is really cool, like, but like this all this behind the scenes of like how I even got here.
Yeah.
Like it was a like slow grind. Like I said, I didn't 80 something episodes. I wasn't even on YouTube yet. It was strictly audio and like a couple clips I would post.
Mm,
And then it's like I get like the main camera, and then I get your angle, and it's
right.
like I built on stuff slowly, and it's like
Right.
even to like go with that whole analogy, like you might get tackled for a loss sometimes. Like you might get hit back, but guess what? You have 4 downs. There's
Yeah.
multiple tries at this. And like say you turn it over and the defense wins that one. Okay, the game's not over.
Yeah.
Life's a game. Like there's more opportunities and there's more chances, and like even building off that like glamorous like social media posts, like that's what people are portraying. You're not seeing all the work behind that or what they struggled to do to get
Mm,
to that picture that they're posting. It's like that's the best of the best. Like you're never really going to see the most authentic version of people on social media. And like to be honest, you don't have to show that, to be honest, on social media. Like, you don't have to be that authentic,
Mm,
because we have that option and people are going to choose that option.
yeah,
But if you're going to be one of those people that wants to be authentic, understand that like it's going to be a grind.
it
Like
will be.
a lot of people are not going to find your content. A lot of people might not resonate with it
Yeah,
at first either, but it's like that consistent, like keep going, because like you never know what could happen and what could break your way. And I think it's just interesting the way that people like approach social media or approach their like everyday life, where it's like you have to on some level just be like, it is what it is. Like, I'm going to keep going and grinding,
yeah,
but you have to keep showing up too.
you
Like, this
do.
doesn't happen without me showing up every single week or every single month or every single year and trying to actively book people and like create a new podcast, a new guest, a new experience. Like, it starts with you. And like, even to build off this is like, one of my favorite things that people say on this podcast is always like, if you don't believe in yourself first, then how can you expect anyone else to believe in you?
Yeah,
And it starts there. And a lot of people don't always like lead with that.
yeah. They think it's too cliche. They think it's too corny. It's like you're the first person when you wake up, you look in that mirror. It's you versus you, man. It's you versus you. No one else is playing this battle. Like I use a basketball analogy all the time. The hoop is the outcome. The ball is your decisions, and you are the driver of your decisions. You shoot, you're gonna make it sometimes. You got to practice, right? Life is a shoot around. It's you and that hoop. Whatever happens, whatever that shot gets in, right? You make those shots; those are wins. You miss it. Some shots are going to be worse than others. Some are going to be total air balls. Some they're going to spin around the rim a bunch of times and they're going to pop out, right? It's not, but that's everyone gets so discouraged. They're like, I got to go 100 for 100. You're not going to hit 100%.
You ain't Steph Curry.
Even Steph Curry misses, right?
He had to get to that point where he don't miss.
Yeah, he's in a position right now. He practiced, he worked, he put those shots out. You got to do that in life. You can't. You have to try, right? And so especially in social media, right? If you get 200 views on a video, that's 200 people you didn't have watching you before, right? I am a big person. I'm a big proponent of authenticity, and with numbers and everything, you got to try, right? Because you can sit at the desk and be like, well, I could just, well, what's someone gonna think of me? And oh, if it doesn't do well, what if it does, right? I've had videos where I thought they were gonna do great. They didn't do as well as I
It's
thought,
always how it goes.
right? I've done videos where I was like, this is all right. Blew up. It blew
Yeah.
up, right? It blew up. That's just how it is. And I think that that's something that we need to, especially in society today. No one. The goal is never to lose, but you have to prepare for the inevitable. You're gonna get hit. You're gonna get hit. It's like another football analogy. You're not gonna run the full length of the field every single time getting not touched. You're gonna get hit. Some hits are gonna be bigger than others, right? Some they're gonna just trip you. Some they're gonna really rock you, like really rock your stuff, right? But you just gotta keep. It starts with you. You gotta keep going.
And I think the scary part for people with social media is your mistakes are documented and they're documented forever, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Like that's where people get terrified and become their own worst like enemies. Like
Mm,
maybe our parents' generations and ones before that didn't have that fear of like,
mm,
well, if I fuck up, like this is always going to be out there. Like,
yeah.
and that is like, yeah, that's scary.
Mm,
But like, what's scarier, being in the same spot for the rest of your life, or being willing to be like, yeah, my old videos were cringy, but like, I eventually found my way and found my voice and found my like content. Like, and especially when you're trying to start something, like it's hard, it's daunting. You see everyone out there doing stuff similar to what you want to do, and like you don't know where to start. But like what's the classic saying? It's like it's either day one or one day. Like you gotta like just I hate saying this, but do it, like, and like get after it. But it's combined with like being patient, understanding that it doesn't always happen,
yeah.
and like sure you might have that one video that blows up right away, but like are you able to bounce back and keep creating? Like, are
Yeah.
you gonna like keep living off that one video? And like a lot of times, if you blow up quickly, typically you burn out quicker too, because like you're gonna be like, oh, well, gotta replicate, and
Yeah.
people might not resonate with that. They might just resonate with that video.
Yeah.
And like that's like the hardest thing, is to get an audience to resonate with you, not just like the actual content itself.
It's true.
And that's a difficult thing that a lot of people don't figure out. I don't know if you've ever seen the guy Hub's Life on TikTok. He's like a 9 to 5er,
I think I
or
have.
was, and like there's like a huge hate wave against him right now because he like changed his content. and like he got out of the 9 to 5, which I think everyone really wants to do, but he tried to normalize the 9 to 5, so his audience started to hate him because he started making content that wasn't 9 to 5 because he used social media to monetize the 9 to 5 to get out of the 9 to 5,
Yes.
and that becomes an issue where the people were watching because they liked the content, they didn't really resonate with you.
Right.
And it's difficult because I like the guy. He's actually shared videos of me talking about him because like I liked the concept, normalize the 9 to 5 because not everyone wants to do this stuff. No, not everyone wants to
Oh,
be a creator, and that's fine. Like having a 9 to 5 is normal. Most people have them because they
yeah.
need to pay bills because like life is real. But
Yes.
like the point being with the social media stuff is like be authentic, like just create, like and just keep creating. Like learn to change and grow because life's unfair, like we said, and it's gonna throw you curveballs and you're gonna get tackled for loss. You might fumble, but like if you can jump back on the ball and just keep moving forward, you're always gonna be better off than the person who's not even hiking the ball to begin with.
Yeah.
I want to start diving into kind of how you made the progression with your content. Like what made you change from doing like the cards to doing what up Rhody?
So it's funny because so when I got to the peak of that page, I wasn't fulfilled enough with it. And I collect sports cards. I love it. But recently I was like, I just don't, I'm not feeling this anymore. And in the content, it wasn't fulfilling. I wasn't really in it, you know? Um, so I said, I'm gonna, it was funny because my parents, it was in a conversation, it was related to it, but it was something about, going to a different state for a show or a convention. And they said to me, why don't you do something like this in your own backyard? Right? Why don't you do something like Rhode Island? You know? And I was like, well, the opportunities, right? And I said, and I kind of put it on the back burner and, I kept pushing and, putting out content and it was good. And it did well. The numbers were fine. Some of my best videos, I mean, they 39 million views on a video, I was like, whoa, my eyes were getting bigger than my head. And then I just, got really, really like in my own head being like, it's not over 1 million views. It's not a good video. And I was like, okay, I got to stop. This is bad. So I said, let's try something new. I stepped away from that. And then I asked a bunch of people, I was like, hey, here's the idea for What Up, Rhody. I want it to be kind of like, we're going to different places, we're having fun, we're highlighting different people because there's a lot of talent here. I'm a big fan. I research a bunch of social medias. Like I can literally list off the places like where I got certain things, how I came to where it became. Like Rap TV was my huge inspiration for kind of all of it. That and also kind of I don't want to say World Star as much, but rap was definitely like the graphics and everything. Um, but I will say that I think just the content as well, Lyrical Lemonade, just that kind of concept of smaller people, and getting that recognition out there. And so I wasn't trying to be like a promo page, and I'm still not a promo page. But if you're gonna promote, it's like advertising, it's like a billboard, So, um, I said, we need a page like this. There's no one really doing that. Like I've never seen any page in Rhode Island, and there's people that are doing the exact same things as people in Texas and California and Florida and New York, right? Why not us? So I said, let's make a page. And then the original name was going to be called Yo Rhody, right? Because I was thinking ahead of my videos saying, okay, I want a greeting, right? And so I went on Instagram and I only picked names from Instagram if they're already not taken and they don't have any dots and underscores. Yo Rhody was taken by somebody with 0 followers. I was like so mad. And I was like, they've never used this account before. I want it so bad. And so I said, all right, we got to pivot because I'm like, I'm not going to DM them and be like, I want this page. So I said, all right, what's a greeting that I can use? Right. What's something that I say? Well, I can't say, hey, Rhody, because that's a magazine. Right. Shout out them. They're great people. And then I was like, I don't want to say hi, Rhody. That sounds too, but I say what up to people or what's up. So I was like, "What up?" Like I always say, "What up?" Like if someone talks to me or says hi to me off guard, I'm always like, "What up?" Right? And so I said, "What up, Rhody?" Right? Because I didn't want to put Rhode Island because it's like super. I want it to be short, catchy, right? Very sleek name, quick. Even though a lot of people now, people will sometimes think I'm saying "What up, Brody?" I'm like, I'm not. It's not Brody. I don't know who Brody is. Um, and so I created that, and right off the jump, I was getting traction for things, and I kind of did what I do with the Card Dome, which I did news and I did some things, and Rhode Island's a small state. We have overlapping news. We have a lot of things that are happening. It's small. We're not. It's what is happening in Rhode Island is like an area, a section of a state, like what's happening in like Los Angeles, and that's even I could look up Los Angeles right now, and there's a laundry list of things compared to Rhode Island. Um, so I said, let's start with the new stuff. I said, let's go with something comfortable. And you can kind of see if you look at what's called the hobby hype now, because I've changed the name. But if you look at the hobby hype and the card and what up Rhody, you can see kind of the similarities in, the design, right? That was like mint green, but that same black fade picture circle, right? Was all like that when I started the card dome, hobby hype, whatever you want to refer to it as. And then I said, I think this is something where I want to really branch off of this. And then I said, let's do artists. Let's talk about the music people. So it was funny. Club Ambition actually had, you know, uh, a segment talking about like the state of rap in Rhode Island. And I said, this is really good. I'm gonna repost this. So I said, let's do this. Made a thing. They reposted it. Everybody reposted it. And this is when I was like, you know, 10 followers. Constant growth, and people were messaging me being like, "Hey, this is really cool. Can we talk about my music, right?" And I have artists hitting me up, all the time, being like, "Hey, can we promote?" And I'm choosy with people. I can't just put everybody because like there are some people that they just sometimes I don't know what they want out of it, and there's some people that really take it seriously, like that's their craft, like they love music. But I always say everybody starts somewhere, and I don't want to discredit people because there's some people that they're making music in their room and they're just trying to get somewhere, right? But I wanted to highlight what's happening in the state because I knew that this is an untapped thing. We have artists, both drawing, paintings, designing, and also music. And then we also have, events happening. And that's when I said about Side Talk NYC, when the whole Bing Bong
Mhm.
and, um, so I said, I want to go out into Rhode Island and just go to different places. Um, and because of just when I started was like right when everything was like getting geared up for next year I do want to plan for like Newport Jazz Fest and Newport Folk Fest and all these different places, but it was kind of really really soon, and then like with work and everything I didn't know how this was going to go. Like I really thought that this was going to be like 1,000 follower thing in like 6 months, but it's been April 6th, do the math, April 6th since till now, 15K, and I'm just, and I told people, I said, even at like 300 followers, the love and the passion that I had for it was like, wow, this is really something. I really felt something to this because I live in Rhode Island. I can connect with these people. I know these places, and I can, put this out there for people to enjoy. And that's really one of the biggest things. And, I have so many ideas for the future. And, I had to kind of accelerate that thought process because I was, how fast we've grown. And I was like, all right, now I feel like I got to do this. But I don't want to rush. A lot of people, when they blow up, they're like, okay, let's do every brand deal, let's do every event, right? I want to be measured with it. I want to keep quality, right? When you have quality, when you have all these things, right? You want to be very discerning in how you do it and what you do, and and I keep the page very positive. I don't talk about anything controversial. I don't talk about, I stay away from all that stuff. Because it's just how I've seen the reactions on social media from other pages, and speaking with people that run bigger social media pages than I do across the world, and they've all been like, yeah, don't do it. Like, really don't do it. So um but I've gotten DMs from people saying you've had, I love the content, you're very curated with your stuff. Like the things that you find or the things you talk about are very, very focused on, bringing Rhode Island up. And I don't talk about the bridge. I don't talk about, because it's like, how many times are we going to talk about the bridge? Like we're all right. It's a pain, but I mean, like, okay, how many times are we going to talk about it? Like that's, local news is great for that. They have all that information and intel. I'm just another mouthpiece that I don't want to be. Right. So I wanted to bring that aspect and kind of be like a distraction, be like, hey, Rhode Island's cool too. Right. And every place has their problems and everyone likes to sometimes focus on the negative. And look, I'm not trying to be, naive to the negative. Like, trust me, there's things that go on, but like, this page is about positivity. It's about having fun, and it's about bringing the Rhode Islanders together and say, hey, my state's being highlighted in some way, in a good light. So that's and it's a simplistic message. It really is.
No, I really love that, and I love that's like the mindset when you're like creating the content and going down this path with it,
Mm.
because like I really resonate with that, because like for me personally, on this platform, I don't get into divisive things like politics and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Like that's just like a no go for me. Like I just like everyone else, like I have my own opinions and beliefs on stuff,
Right.
but like it's like I want I wanted to create a platform where everyone feels welcome to come on to talk about why they do what they do. And like that was the goal, is to
Mm.
like highlight cool things that everybody does, while also like emphasizing that we all go through things. And that's why I
Yeah.
do like the whole life story talk, because
Right.
like there's something that you've gone through that really shaped you to create why you did. And I just want to share that with people and like have people come on and sit across from me and talk about like whether it was a mental health struggle or was something like a passing of a loved one or like a COVID situation. And like we all have things that shape us in certain ways that drive us to create.
Mm.
And what I've noticed, and I've become more aware of this as I've been doing the podcast the last several years, is like typically the people that come on this podcast and sit across from me are trying to do the same thing. We're just doing it in different ways. And like that's the coolest thing, is like highlighting, promoting, connecting with people, spreading
Right.
positivity. Like that's the thing.
Yeah.
That's the message. And like you could do it in different ways, and I think that's like the coolest thing that I've been able to highlight on this podcast, is like I'm just doing it a different way than what you are. And
Yeah.
like that's the coolest thing in the world, is like we're both trying to bring positivity to this and bring awareness and like highlight things that are cool about people around us or the state that we live in. And like that's awesome, cuz like we're just approaching it from like this like completely different life experiences and coming at it from the same thing. And even
Mm.
like last week, Lucas Nature, same thing, or like people that'll come on the podcast before, it's like we're all trying to do the same. And I just think that's like a cool message, that you just have to start. And like you never know, like you didn't know this page was going to blow up this way,
No.
but like people resonate with real, people resonate with what's around them. And I'm always big on like take care of like your community. What's around you?
Yeah.
Find those people first, cuz like everyone tries, especially in content, reaches for the stars, reaches internationally, nationally, like they want the big thing. And like I think what was really authentic and honest about you, where you talked about like having millions of views and like chasing that for a second, cuz like I've gone viral on TikTok doing other stuff and different content that was like it was more like sad boy stuff at the time. I was doing relationship content during COVID and stuff. I was
Yeah.
having bad like dating experiences, and I had like 50K on like TikTok, and like I was like doing really well, and like I outgrew it. I got bored with it, and like I was chasing the views at a point, and like you don't realize it when you're in it. Like
Yeah.
you're just like this. I need better content. I need more content. I need to like do this and do that. And it's like once you find something that you truly resonate with and that you could pour into,
Mm.
it's not going to be draining. You're not going to be chasing the numbers, because you can just naturally do it, and you're like, I enjoyed that.
Yeah.
And like, don't get me wrong, I've had plenty of people that like want to critique or say something with the podcast. You do it this way, do it that way, and it's like you can get more views if you do this, or if your thumbnail look like that. And I'm like, I don't care. Like I enjoy the way I do my podcast because it's authentically me. Like I
Right.
edit this, I produce this, like we're having legit conversation. It's not like curated to us to get a certain audience. We're not talking about a certain topic to
Right.
get people engaged. Like it's legitimately about you, why you do what you do, with me kind of like interjecting and saying some stuff here and there
Right.
about my personal experiences and like connecting.
Mm.
And like that to me is traditional podcasting and getting
Yeah.
back to the interview.
Yeah.
And it's like that's the cool thing. I want to dive a little bit more into kind of like what's the goal coming up with the page because we're getting towards the I'm used to having my laptop here because
Yeah.
that's like my timer. So like now I have to like, what is this? And my
Yeah, there
laptop's
you
like
go.
this. We're getting towards like that back end of the podcast where I start wrapping stuff up, and I got like that last question for you. But I wanted to ask you like, what's like the goal? What's the upcoming expectations of like the platform? Like, what are you kind of looking forward to? What should the people expect from you?
I, I think that for me, I think that this is something that I want to grow, exponentially for the people of Rhode Island. Um, and also just work at my pace with it. I think that's what's made it good. It's like, paced out, but also being aggressive with it. Social media is a business, content's a business, right? I'm gonna be doing food reviews. I'm already scheduling some things already, so be on the lookout. Right? So I'm doing stuff like that, visiting different places, and just I think that the goal is I want to have events like What Up Rhody events, hosted events. Especially with my love of sports and and just also just bringing people together, having fun. I'm a big music person, right? I've been saying to people so many times. I said we got to bring a big music festival here at some point, like in the fall and like spring, early springtime. Um, so I want to do something like that, like. I always say Rolling Loud, and everyone's like, "Oh, you're going somewhere with this," and I'm like, "Oh, you gotta be do some planning with that." Um, Merchandise, all that stuff. But I also want it to be, this is one beautiful thing about this page is it's a community page, right? And it's everyone really just curates content, kind of for me, right? They send me things and articles and facts because they kind of see what I do now, right? And everyone's been so great thus far, right? And with my green screen videos, which I'll be honest with you, those are probably one of my most successful ones, and it's the least amount of effort. I'm sitting in my car, I'm like, all right, let's talk about Manute Bowl playing in Rhode Island, right? Talk about that. That to me is that it's cool. It's like what the heck, like I'll go out and I'll be filming and I got my mics on, right? And then the 30-second clip in my car is like the most viral. um but that's all great stuff too. And one of the things to branch a little bit was one of the somebody that Buster Share, who was the creator of Hoops Nation. He told me one time about with content. He said always show your face in content. Faceless. There's like times where things need to be faceless. I get that. But if there's something that you really want to like connect with people on, show your face because it has something meaningful to it. It's like, hey, this is Jared, and he runs the Carroll Connection. They put a face to the name and say, wow, I really like the podcast or whatever you talked about, and there's an impact behind that. Because when there's confusion, everyone's like, who is this person, right? And then you pop up one day and you're like, oh, right, okay, back to the faceless stuff, right? So, but when you kind of make that rapport, it's kind of like people getting to know you, right? If you make that rapport with people, people will start being like, hey, this is really something. But that was one of my goals, was really kind of put myself out there, not because I wanted to be like, hey, look at me, right? I really wanted to be that, you know you could see who I am and what I'm doing, and hey, this is the guy behind it. But also the goal is just showing the state, the country, maybe even the world, hey, we're the smallest state, but we have a lot of good things. We have a lot of cool things, and there's room for improvement. There's room for opportunity, right? A lot of people are like, okay, what's here is what's here. No, I mean, do something. That's what I did. I said, there's nothing here. There's no page for this, right? Let's make a page for it. Let's make a page in this kind of realm, right? Because, there's a page called Only in New York or something, or What is New York, right? It's got like 1 million followers on Instagram, right? And it's just clips of things happening in New York. Like people send them in and all that stuff. And look at that and I say, okay, that's inspiring. That's an inspirational piece of content. And I see what they're doing. And then I look at what other places are doing, like what other pages that are city based. And also seeing like the culture pages, like Rap TV, Side Talk, um, you know, um, wasted, like all the other social media news podcast stuff, and also seeing like, okay, what other, in front of camera type content is there. So those are my ultimate goals. It's like, really, okay, what will work for this page? What will this page have? What kind of impact will this page have for people? For the state, right? And that's really my biggest focus, while also being grounded with everything, because you want to go too big, and you kind of lose your footing. Know where your feet are, right? So, um, yeah, I would say that that's one of my biggest things. Events, kind of a culmination of all that kind of stuff.
That's awesome, and I'm really excited to see where this page keeps going and where you keep going in
Yeah.
your career, because like this can be leveraged in so many different ways and where you take it. And
Mm,
I think your heart's in the right place when you're trying to create this stuff too. And it's coming from a place of pure, like, you want to do this.
yeah.
And like, I think that's always where you should be in following that. Cause like, obviously you had a really successful page before and you're like, I'm going to pivot a little bit and try to focus on something else. Cause like something inside me wants something different.
It
And
means something.
yeah.
I want to. This is, and it sounds so cliche, but like, impact, right? But I'm not trying to be like the moral high ground here. I'm not trying to say that at all. Like, I'm a regular person. I'm an average dude that has a page and people see me and it's like, oh, I show up on your For You page. Cool. Like, but that's kind of like, that's where I really want it to be, is, this is Rhode Island. This is what it's all about. And this is, here's what I can show you about it. And I want to bring people to this. Like, I want celebrities who maybe have never been here. That's another goal. I want celebrities making content with them. Bring them in and be like, hey, you never been to Rhode Island before, but this is Rhode Island. This is a small spot, and if they like it, they like it. And but I want everyone to kind of see, like, we're the smallest state, but we got a lot going on, right? When people say we have nothing to do here, I'm like, go to Nebraska. That's nothing. That is nothing. That's cornfields, man. Like, that's cornfield. Go to Kansas, right? That's not like, even though Kansas has its, beautiful places, and Nebraska has its heart and its soul, you know, we're a small state. You can go to the beach one day, the city next day, the farmlands, and all in one day. And there's so much. And just don't think of like the big places. Don't be like, oh, there's the beach, and then there's Federal Hill, and then that's it. Go to like someplace in like South Kingston, right? Go to a place in Woonsocket or Burrville, right? That, explore somewhere. You might find a place. I know people that have places here that I've never heard of, that have been around for years. And I'm like, I want to go and see these places. And I think people should know about them if they're good, hopefully.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
yeah.
And I think that's good though. And I think it's going to go in the right direction because it's like a belief in yourself and
Yeah.
there's confidence and there's good energy around it. And people are always going to rally around that. And also the fact that it's kind of was like, you were like, whether this had like 1,000 followers and obviously it just blew up to like obviously where you're at now with
Mm.
like 15K, like you were going to do it regardless. And I
Yeah,
think that's a good thing.
the incentive is definitely more now.
Yeah,
right?
obviously.
Because 1,000 is, 1,000 followers, it's like, okay, right. And then, but you want to build, and you kind of keep seeing where it goes. When you when you see that K
Yeah,
in front of
yeah.
your name, you're like, okay, this is something. We got some legs here, right? This isn't, but I tell people all the time, whether you have 500 or 500,000, right? It's what you make of it, right? It's your audience is sticking by you, right? Who knows? You might get to that 500K, right? My goal, I want to hit 100K and beyond. That's my goal. I said I want to hit triple digits, triple whatever, on the thing, right? I want to hit 100K plus. Can it happen? I think it can. But I need to figure out a strategy and say, what will I do to get to that, right? I mean, I can't go on people's phones and be like, all right, like, follow, but just pumping out content, consistency, and never getting discouraged. And I tell people when, they're starting pages or doing stuff for themselves, right? I say, just post. I know it's cliche, just start, because it's real, right? You want to, if you're going to apply for a job, you're not going to just sit there and be like, okay, job is going to come to me. I will sit in my bed and voila, someone will email me one day and say, I want to offer you 6 figures. It doesn't happen, right? You have to go on LinkedIn. You got to go on Indeed and put in that work. Same thing. Make an Instagram account, right? You make music, post your clips, post your music, dance in front of you if you want to. I don't care what you do, just do something. Like I collect figurines, post post the figurines. Somebody will like it. Put hashtags in there. All right. I tell people about hashtags all the time. Right. And just find your niche, find your people. That's what I did with the card page. That's what I'm doing with Rhode Island. Obviously, cards are more niche down than like an actual place you live in a state. But find your passion, and but also be realistic about it. Rome wasn't built in a day. Don't be like, I'm quitting my job and then that's it, right? Put your have a foundation, right? We talked about in the beginning. Have a solid foundation with everything and know where you want to go with it, and just persist 1 yard every day. Doesn't have to be big. If you get 10,000 views on a video, cool. Will it happen again? It might. Don't bank on it, right? And don't like lose sight, being like, oh, I got 10K now, right? Consistency is key, right? And that's one of the big things I try to impress upon people is numbers are numbers. I used to get I mean obviously I care about my numbers, right? Because then you get to see what's going on and what's working, what doesn't work. But I look at it a different way. Before I was like, oh, it's not good enough. Now I'm like, all right, maybe we got to pivot something here. If I get 4,000 views compared to 10,000 views or 20,000 or 100,000, okay, right? But I enjoyed making the content. That's all it is at the end of the day. If you enjoy it, if you enjoy what you're doing, it doesn't feel like work. That's something I really, I'm really big on.
No, yeah, and I mean, obviously my last question was going to be about passions, but I think that kind of like answers the question anyway.
Yeah.
So like, I'm not going to ask you again just to get the same answer,
Yeah.
but like, I think that's a great point because like that's kind of how I feel about my content. I'm like, sure, like, could I change certain things or title certain things and shift stuff around in the content to get more people to listen to my platform? Yeah, sure. I know how to do social media. I've had success doing other stuff.
Mm,
Um, but that's just not what I enjoy doing. And
right.
I think that's like kind of what you're hitting on right there. It's an important piece because
Mm,
like I enjoy doing the podcast the way it is. I
right.
like that. And for me, like average episodes could get like 50 to like 100 views. You put 100 people in a room listening to us talk like
Yeah.
for an hour, like that's pretty damn cool. Like
Yeah.
perspective is everything, and I think a lot of the time we overlook that stuff. Is like we're two random people having a conversation, and
Right.
like 100 people want to listen to that. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Like, and I think people jump because they see the 10K, the 100K, the millions, and it's like, yeah, stuff happens where people can have those conversations and platforms, but like if I'm on YouTube and I see me and you talking and I don't know either one of us and like what's the incentive to click on it? I understand that reality of social media
Mm,
and I don't care cuz like it's not for those people, it's for the people within our network. It's for
yeah.
people that know us. Like it's never going to be for those people and I don't really care cuz like the only way they might click on it is if I somehow go viral or go crazy with subscribers and they're like, "Oh, I want to check out this person. He's 100K subscribers." That number validates that where people random might check in.
Mm,
But for me, that's it's never the reason why I'm chasing this. Like I'm not chasing the numbers. I'm not chasing that. I'm chasing the connection with the person sitting across from me.
yeah. I mean, I always like being in a position where I can have a balance. Both I can make stuff online and I can meet you in person.
Mhm.
And it's not like, oh, I want fans coming up to me taking pictures. It's, hey, I saw that video that you made. I think it was really funny, or I thought it was really cool, right? Or you popped up on my For You page or something. That is a good feeling, right? But also, I want to have like that connection too. I want to do both, and that's one of the good things about with my content. I want to, talk to people in Rhode Island, right? And I'm not, and it's not because I'm more. I like the comedy. I like the fast paced. I'm a very like, let's have some fun with it, right? And you have the sit down. Let's talk about you. Who are you? Like, what are you like? What are you about? What's your story, right? I'm telling you, I guarantee. This is a This is a content idea. I think that maybe if you want to, you can, right? I would go out in like a random street somewhere, right? Put like a sign on the thing being like, what makes you happy? Right. And do the exact same thing we're doing. And it's like short things. And then people will sit down and be like, my parents or, my job or my dog or something, right? Because then you get to feel it. Because there's something like when I make a post or when I make a post in my car, like it's cool. But when I get to talk to people, I'm like, oh, this is great because I'm getting both best of both worlds. I'm getting my human interaction because I'm a gabber, right? I was blessed with the gift of gab, right? From my mom. My mom was a gabber. My dad's a gabber too, but my mom's more of a gabber, and it's a good thing, right? Talking to everybody. Like my parents were always like, interact with people. Don't just be, in the corner. Be discerning, right? But talk to people. But interacting is so important, and being able to you know feel that emotion, right? The laughter and the fun. There's really nothing better than that.
Yeah,
Really.
and that's why I've always said that's why I continue to do in-person podcasts, and I've never done a virtual one. I don't, not that I'm against or knock people that do it. I understand you can get more reach and different types of
Mm,
guests and stuff like that, and that's awesome. There's just something when you sit down with someone in a room and have a conversation, like there's energy to it, there's realness to it. Like you get the facial expressions, you get
yeah,
the inflections in the voice. There's no
yeah,
like awkward time lapse with the whole internet stuff.
yeah,
Like it's gets back to like the in-person stuff. And I think we're starting to as a society, but I think exactly kind of what you're talking about is that realness, that talking to people, like connecting, and
yeah.
like that's why it's the Carroll connection. It's getting back to that piece that we're kind of missing with social media. But Paul, this has been a great podcast. Start bringing this stuff home. I'm not going to ask you the question about passions because we kind of just like hammered that right there. Like I think that was a great piece that we were talking about right there. So I don't want to ask a redundant
Yeah,
question like
no
that.
worries.
But I appreciate you for coming on the podcast. This has been a fantastic episode, and
Thank
we've
you.
gone to a lot of great stuff. If you want to look into that camera and just plug where the people can find you.
Find me on Instagram, what up Rhody, at what up Rhody, TikTok at what up Rhody, Snapchat at what up Rhody, YouTube at what up Rhody. Everything's what up Rhody. There's nothing nothing crazy there. Yeah, just if you have fun clips of Rhode Island that you want to send, please read the guidelines before you submit. But in our Google form, you can submit them in the link in bio on our Instagram. I always say our, even though I'm the only one that runs it, right? Link in bio. Send some cool clips. Could be drone shots. It could be anything. Just read the guidelines beforehand. Also, just if you have any content ideas, if you want to reach out, you want me to visit somewhere, please let me know. I can't guarantee everything, and I'm not going to say yes to everything because I'm one person, but I would love to hear what you have to say. DMs are always open, as with everything.
Perfect. And again, appreciate you for doing this and taking the time out of your day to sit across from me and have a
Of
conversation.
course. Thank you for having me.
Perfect. So for you guys like the podcast, please rate, review, subscribe, share with your friends, share with your family, share with your grandma. Check out the carolconnection.simplecast.com. Also, Apple Podcast, Spotify, and all the major listening platforms. If you'd like to watch your podcast, go on YouTube, search the Carroll Connection or at Jared M. Carroll, and it should pop up for you. And if you want to be a guest or return as a guest, hit me up on Instagram at Jared M. Carroll or at the Carroll Connection, and we'll set that up, as well as plugging the 5 Pillars to Creating Meaningful Life, only available on Amazon. And if you get it, please, please, please submit the review on Amazon. It goes a long way in the algorithm. So, till next time, guys, peace.